Alright, guys. Welcome back to Tomboy Official, back to the podcast. Did you guys watch Ashley Gavin's special? Did you watch it? It was great. I loved it. It was awesome. Definitely cheered me up. I recommend it, go through her content, she's got a lot of great stuff out. If you like comedy, for myself, sometimes I have to be in the mood for comedy, but like for stand-up, but I don't really like too much dark, kind of like negative content with stuff. Like on occasion I'll watch like certain movies or shows that are kind of like, violent or something like that, but usually I try to stay away from that kind of stuff. So yeah, I did find it very cool, very interesting watching that episode with Ashley Gavin. It was really cool. I'd recommend watching it if you want to check it out. I recommend checking out her stand-up. There's a lot of good stand-up out there, a lot of good queer stand-up out there. Her podcast, one of the podcasts, because she's on more than one now, the We're Having Gay Sex podcast, usually she has on guests that a lot of them are in stand-up, some of them aren't, but I want to say maybe the majority of them are. So that's a good way to get introduced to some good comedians, and it's kind of cool. I like the interview podcast chat style of like watching people sit around and talk about stuff. So that's kind of my vibe. In addition, I like just representation is always good. Stuff that's relatable, seeing people in an audience that kind of reflect you a little bit, even if it's not maybe racially or ethnically or gender-wise or whatever, but sometimes, just seeing like your community in a big space, even on a YouTube video, is just fascinating. Sometimes, it's like, I don't know about you, but for me, things like that can easily change my tone for the day and just kind of make things just feel kind of like, all right, like chill, I like to see that, there are people out there who kind of understand that, the rules aren't really the same for all of us, and having someone like her, like Ashley Gavin, who kind of speaks to those challenges, especially as a professional woman in her 30s, who's educated, she's got a lot of skills in tech, very intelligent, smart person, very funny. For me, I guess the only thing I don't like in comedy in general is like roasting type of stuff. That's not really my flavor. But I mean, also, it's kind of like, okay, that is part of the game, so I do get that. But yeah, but I have to be honest, because for me, it's just a preference. Just like I said, like I don't watch a lot of violent stuff, a lot of, it's just a preference. Like I just, everyone has a natural type of thing that they gravitate towards, and then stuff that they'd rather just avoid. And for me, that's the kind of stuff I'd kind of rather avoid, is just, it just things that might start like swimming around in my head longer than what I would want them to. But that's a me problem. That's not, like putting down anybody's craft or whatever. I'm just saying, like, that's my own preference. Other people don't mind that kind of stuff. Other people like it. So, you know, I don't know. I really, I've been watching her content since We're Having Gay Sex podcast started, and then Chosen Family podcast after that. And it was kind of funny because, like, I was already watching content by Mac Injemy and by Elena Joy, and now they're all together, on a pod, and it's like just great to see. And I saw a video of Ashley Gavin before, I guess it was like somewhere along where she was doing like a TED Talk, and I think she had an interview about like teaching girls to code and women to code, and she had a goal of wanting to teach 1 million females to code. And it's just interesting seeing like a clip like that's like so much older, when she was quite a bit younger. I feel she seemed a little bit younger in her personality. Like, she wasn't like cracking jokes and stuff either at that time, because it was just an interview for like I don't know if it was for the TED Talk or if it was just an interview related to kind of like her career goals at the time. And she speaks to her journey at certain aspects where she talks about her experience with school, and then doing stand-up full-time, and being online. Like, the online stuff seems to have started during the Rona, during like about 2020 or so. And she, she's a New Yorker, and I really kind of admire people who can work for themselves and live in a place like New York that's like super expensive, in a studio apartment. I mean, she's moved to a different apartment now, but she was in a studio in New York, and I don't know how much it cost, but it was probably a fortune, because even studios in New York are well over $1,000, probably even over $2,000 a month, maybe even more than that, because in San Diego they're actually close to 2,000 sometimes. And so I'd want to say in New York they're probably even closer to 3,000 a month, maybe. I don't even know the rates of apartments in New York, but I know that they're ridiculously high. And to be traveling, like, she travels all the time too, and doing gigs locally in New York, and to be online multiple times a week. And I've seen her popping up on a lot of other podcasts too. Some other people that I've actually followed in the past, like Snow the Product, and some other people that I didn't even know about, that I got introduced to their content because she was on it. And so I just like seeing her online. I like seeing that she's doing a lot of good stuff. Her special was really cool. I think people were donating some money. She's got a Patreon. All of the podcasts she's on have a Patreon. I'm on the Patreon. I subscribe, pay. She's got multiple tiers of different price rates. So, I mean, and she's for the community. That's what I like about her. She's for the community. She's not, trying to like downplay herself, and she seems pretty genuine, very vulnerable. I mean, yeah, she's cracking jokes. She's a comedian, but she has a very human side to her. And I don't know if it's maybe because I've seen different angles, that she takes, like different, like seeing her with like on a straight guy podcast, or seeing her on like a trans person's podcast, or a non-binary person's podcast, or seeing her on a podcast with other, queer women, or like queer women and straight women, or seeing her like, on her own podcast, and seeing her doing stand-up in different places, and seeing her collab with other people, you know, like in the comedy space. And the stuff that she comes out with is really good. Like every time I'm pretty surprised. I'm like, everything I view tends to be better than the stuff before. And I'm thoroughly impressed, you know? I try not to be like negative about people's stuff. Unless I think that it's really like that bad of like something that somebody did that's like, ooh, that would have been not so good for the community or not so good for people to, you know, partake of that kind of thinking. But no, with her stuff, you know, I just love, like, I feel like I talk about her too much because, like, I watch all her stuff. And I remember when she started kind of going a little more into getting more minorities on her podcast and more, like, just a little more broadening kind of the spaces and the people that she kind of talks to. And it's just eye-opening, you know? It's like she takes topics that can be really taboo and challenging and makes it funny. And, you know, I always feel uplifted after listening or watching her stuff. And I can't say that about too much content. Like, with a lot of things that are out there, you know, I find it kind of hard to follow a lot of content because a lot of it's like either like, okay, I'm not really like interested in that. Like, there's not too much depth to it. Like, I don't find myself thinking about anything afterwards, or like coming up with like you know, doesn't get the gears turning. You know, I don't laugh, I don't, you know, feel necessarily better. Like, sometimes after watching certain stuff I might feel like stressed. But with her content, it's, you know, I feel like for the most part, and it's not like she has to keep it going that way. And, you know, I might be biased as well just because I like her stuff. And it's kind of funny because, like, usually there's some YouTubers and people that I'm like, I wish she'd collab with those people. And I think almost every YouTuber that I ever liked, you know, especially every queer one, most of them, not all of them, but she's collabed with most of the ones that I started listening to when I first started kind of like knowing more about myself and kind of, you know, like as far as like sexuality wise, gender wise, that kind of stuff, just kind of just knowing myself better. I definitely, you know, find her content to be part of that journey, even though, you know, I was already kind of like pretty solidified by the time I started watching her stuff. But I mean, it's still, you know, it hit at a time when I think, you know, a lot of us were stuck indoors and not able to get out to like, you know, queer spaces. And like, I was lucky to at least be close nearby to friends where all of us were kind of working locally, working from home. And yeah, we were stuck in the house all the time, but you know, we could go out to parks, go out to the beach, and I really enjoyed being around, you know, all the people. And so you know, she kind of came through in a time that was not ideal for most people. And like, as far as like what was going on in society, and you know, she's still going strong. Like, there are a lot of podcasts out there, and you know, I'm not like shaming them or anything, but there's a lot of stuff out there that I liked because I was like, finally, you know, there's something, you know, more out there. And then, you know, they just like stop posting. And I get it, you know, people gotta work. It's a lot of work, and when you're collabing with a bunch of people, it's a lot of work. But I mean, there was one podcast that I really liked from the first stud model project. that was, I've talked about it before, like, what was it called? The show, Face the Facts show, Face the Facts. And it was a really good, really good series. But of course I wanted more. I was like, man, like, and they stopped recording and they all just kind of went their separate ways. And I was like, dang, and I know, things don't stay the same forever. Online content changes, people move around. I get it. I have had to do those things too. I used to love blogging. I love blogging. I still love it so much, and I rarely ever do it because, it's just hard. It's hard to do right now, and I still like posting content though, but it's easier for me to post podcast content. So yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say today. Welcome into a new week, Sunday. Today's gone fast for me. I didn't nap like I thought I was gonna do, but I am tired. But yeah, I didn't take a nap, and I've been wanting a nap and didn't take one. And yeah, I didn't take a nap, and yeah, I wanted to take a nap and I didn't take one, and now it's like, at the moment it's after 6 p.m. So, I'm waiting to see if I'm gonna grab dinner with my folks, and then just want to get on with my day. I'm pretty tired. But Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is going to be my first attempt for this week of posts, trying to post my daily update information on all 4 of my podcasts. So some podcasts, this will be maybe the only information for the day that I'm going to post, depending on the day, and then other podcasts, I'll just tag this portion on to the end of an episode if people are interested and want to hear kind of what I'm doing for the last near 24-hour period. I'm going to see how this goes and try to post this every day this week. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. It's just something I'm flying by the seat of my pants and decided, let me try it out, because I post it on one of my 4 podcasts pretty much every day anyways, so I just figured, let me just branch it out to the other podcasts as well. So I usually put up a little schedule of what I've been doing. I take notes of my schedule every day, usually just the health related stuff. So people who follow routinely about what I do, since the weekend, I think it was on about 420, I posted on Thursday on one of the pods about, 420 and that kind of thing. And then, Friday I didn't really get up to too much, but I think it was Thursday I started doing gigs, what do you call them? Like secret shopper type gigs, or scheduling to do it and scheduling for different, like, signing up for different programs. It was somewhere around those days. I can't remember what day, honestly, if it was Wednesday or Thursday or something. But I've really been looking into gig apps and the non-scammy type of stuff, right? Because we all know people post online and they'll be like, make $1,500 in an hour or something, and you're just like, that's not gonna happen, or you'll go down this like clickbait rabbit hole where you can spend 2 or 3 hours watching all these videos and signing up for stuff that just doesn't work. So I'm reviewing some different types of apps, and as I use them, I'm gonna try to post about how much money realistically it seems like a person can make on a realistic, if you weren't doing this as a 40-hour a week thing, Because if you wanted to spend 40 hours a week or even longer, I'm pretty sure you could figure out how to make a whole lot more money on those apps. But it's like I feel like most people realistically would rather spend that time working in an hourly paid job, just because you're not, at the whim of people not, just not knowing how much money you make. Like, I feel like it's not a good budgeting strategy to not know how much money you're gonna make every day. It's not a good financial strategy, but also, if you can do that and make any amount of money, I think for some people, depending on what you're going through, for some people they'd rather work, while they're applying for jobs or whatever, and work a 40-hour week to make, I don't know, like $3 a day or $8 a day or whatever. Like, it does add up, even though, yes, it's ridiculous, to think about, oh, I made $8 today, but it was only $1 per hour for 8 hours or whatever, you know. I think people can kind of figure that out, though, of like what they want to do. It's up to the individual with those choices, but I started trying to post about that kind of information to give a more adequate view. So on my Game and Compute podcast, that's where I post about side hustles and things like that, and I try to share that information with people who might want it or need it, because for some people I do know that I've been in a position before, way back, where I was on Amazon Turk. I think that's what it was called, M-Turk or Amazon M-Turk or something like that. And I was filling out surveys and doing like some weird, like, I don't know if I was doing like transcriptions of like audio recordings or something. And they would pay you a little bit, but I knew I was studying for the GRE or something, and I was home a lot, and I was like, what difference does it make if I make like, $5 a day for overworking? I'd rather make the $5 a day than none. Like, sometimes it's like, just because it adds up, you can still get your needs met. But it is, I couldn't say that I've found too many things lately. I found one that I think might, depending on how the schedule looks and depending on how many opportunities they allow you to get and have and do per day, depending on how that looks, I think it would pay out pretty well. But I'm waiting for the new month to see how many gig opportunities they offer. Because the way I'm looking at it is, because I came into that specific app later in the month, I'm not sure what it looks like at the beginning of the month. Because I'm not sure if, okay, like, all these options are exhausted now, or what is it? I can't really tell what it is. And so I don't really want to report on it and then have to go back and be like, oh, I was wrong. Because that's just going to take more energy and more effort to try to remember what I was doing. And I know I'm not going to do it anyways. I'll just probably, unfortunately, leave people hanging. And so I don't want to do that. I'd rather just wait and see if I can find out, what the options look like. Because it seems like it pays out well, but if you don't have, enough options, you can't really work an 8-hour shift. Because the way I see it is like, you would exhaust your options within like 2 or 3 days in most cities, and then you wouldn't be able to work the rest of the month. But still, like, so I don't really want to say like, oh yeah, you could make a 40-hour work week and make $40 an hour, when it's like, okay, you can do that, but only for 3 days out of the month, and then you're not going to be able to do it. And so, yeah, I don't want to say that if that's not true, but that's what it looks like. But I'll report on it in more specifics on the Game and Compute podcast once I know. Because I don't know. Yeah, Friday I did a lot of brainstorming about what I was going to study on Saturday. I do a lot of studying on the weekends. Not studying for classes, but studying for fun. for just for potential topics to record in different niches. So on my Theory and Theology podcast, I usually talk a lot about, you know, religion, or about different cultures, different religions, different cultures, different traditions of different types of people around the world, indigenous people, modern living people, people who speak English, people who don't speak English, people who are different races and different ethnicities, and different sorts of beliefs. Lately I've been studying about strict religions, about cults, and about kind of different places, different people who have talked about their stories about leaving certain religious environments. And so that's kind of what I decided on, I think sometime around Friday. And then Saturday I did a lot of, reviewing of videos and things. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to for the last couple days. As far as last night, I went to bed probably late, around like 1:30. But I started dozing around, I don't know, let's call it 11:30 p.m. Like, I was getting tired pretty early, and I just was kind of like not really ready to fall right to sleep. So I kind of stayed up a little longer. And I was relaxing though, and I woke up this morning a little later. I don't know what time it was. Probably like just before 7 a.m. I woke up around 6:50 something maybe. Then around 7:30 decided, let me grab some coffee and start my day. The coffee wasn't really strong enough, and I did have a headache last night suddenly, sometime around like 9 p.m. I did kind of start having a headache, and then I don't know if I still have a headache. Well, I do actually still have a headache. I don't know why though. I don't know if it's because I've been eating way less carbs, or if it's because I was sitting out in my hot car talking on the phone to my friend for over 2 hours. Maybe it was a dehydration thing. Maybe it's something else kind of thing. I've been eating a lot more fruits and vegetables and fiber and stuff. And so maybe it's just because I've been eating a little bit differently. I really don't know. It could be anything, but I have noticed lately getting headaches since about February sometime. I started getting, kind of mild headaches, but on occasion they do go from one night and then still last into the next morning. And this isn't, it's not that I never had headaches before. I remember getting headaches way back, but I'm not sure why they started returning all of a sudden. A lot of times people say, oh, stress or maybe lack of sleep. That could be it, because I haven't been sleeping like really good lately, but it's because I've been kind of decreasing the amount of melatonin I've been having, because I've been groggy in the morning with melatonin in my system, and then been having to drink coffee, and then getting some pretty high anxiety. And so I've been trying to kind of decrease a lot of stuff this last week, like maybe the second half of last week and on. I don't know, guys, like sometimes it's a little bit confusing for me. I don't talk about this too openly all the time, and I'm not one to push religion and stuff, even though I'm very open to discussions surrounding belief systems and different cultures, which I love. But I'm just going to throw it out there because it is part of my weekly routine. from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, I'm usually immersed in some form of study that has some kind of involvement around like improving relationships. So whether that's studying some kind of culture to kind of gather some kind of information about how they interact with, parent-child relationships, or how they do, some kind of community kind of gathering, or something that has to do with like community and socializing and things like that. Because it's so important to me, I kind of do gravitate to more studying all kinds of cultures and traditions, even from ones that I'm a part of or ones that I'm not a part of. But I do tend to spend that time period kind of, reflecting on like different social interactions and maybe things that might be maybe socially a little difficult or not going so well, or if I notice like trends of like maybe how I'm treating someone, or like patterns of how, I'm reacting to how someone's treating me, or if I notice different types of, things that could maybe improve in my own personal relationships, or just gathering information about how communities in general can like be good with each other, because I do find that to be one of the most important things that I value. Like I was raised around like a tradition of keeping, the Jewish Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, but I don't really traditionally keep it. I'm not Jewish, I never was, but I was raised in a Christian denomination that kept the Jewish Sabbath, and I do still kind of hold space for that time period to kind of do something that I find valuable. I mean, that's not the only thing I do, but I do try to use that time period for like what I mentioned about like cultural learning and stuff like that. Just for my own understanding of like different types of people, especially because I'm not working in the psych field anymore, and I'm not just regularly talking to people on a daily basis in therapy, and like, I'm not like actively using my mind all the time anymore to like delve into people's lives and their patterns, and what's going on with their goals, and like their distress levels of different things, and what, where are they stuck, and all this kind of stuff. I'm not really like in my analytical part of my mind about those things like multiple hours a day anymore, but I do still value, a lot of what I was learning and a lot of what I was doing, and what I took from it is, that I really value sorry, I'm blanking. I really value learning, about different types of people, their needs, their struggles, their, what they are doing that works for them that maybe I don't know about, or that the people I'm surrounded with don't do. And kind of when I can formulate ideas, about those things, then I'll kind of record about it a little bit sometimes. Because I think that's one of the more important things is, socially how people interact, and, it can be healing and it can be harmful. Like, so I do think it's valuable to often, see how society is kind of, changing around us all, and, trying to, for myself, trying to figure out what to do with all the changes. Just so that, people and communities, can have something more, like kind of like something to, think on, to kind of benefit their own lives potentially. like I might not be doing like some strict religious tradition, but I'm still taking a certain time period and trying to do something productive that I value. And yeah, so there's that. And yeah, it's about lunchtime. It's a little after 1 right now, so I'm gonna heat up some food to eat, get some lunch in me, take a little break, and then yeah, I hope you guys are gonna like these updates. Usually I'm more detailed with what I'm doing because I usually have a play-by-play of what I'm doing hourly, but that's kind of all I've done today. You know, I woke up, had some coffee, had a little breakfast. I had egg bites and fruit for breakfast and water. And then, yeah, it's pretty much, and I had the coffee before breakfast. But yeah, that's pretty much all. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna grab some lunch. I'm gonna be working on podcasting most of today, and I don't really know. I got a lot I'm trying to figure out, but I don't think I can figure it all out today. And then, like, I'm basically studying analytics today, and then I've got to get back into some of my, exam studies. I need to schedule. I still haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna schedule today what I'm gonna do for, as far as like gigs for the week, what I'm gonna get into, and as far as gigs or as far as studying schedules, what I'm gonna do as far as when I'm gonna study, how long, what I'm gonna study, and like I'm not really doing job applications anymore. I did end up landing a job, and then I realized I was like, I don't really want to do it because they were gonna make me work Saturdays, and I don't really want to. I told them I could, and then I kind of was like, well, I can't do it every week, and then I was like, yeah, it's kind of against my routine. I really don't want to throw my routine off of what I do on Saturdays because it's important for me to not do that. So I'm choosing my routine over work right now, and it wouldn't have been a very good job either. It's like not even half of the pay. It's like probably about half of the pay that I would want to be getting, and it's part-time. So it was at the very least a bit of a confidence booster because I haven't really applied for jobs up until more recently when I was looking for something temp. And then I was like, that's going to take away from, all these other craft type of things I've been doing, and I'm not really passionate about it, and the money's not worth it for me. Especially because it would be a 20-hour week. I think I would make more just buckling down and doing what I need to do online instead of driving all over town, and I don't think it would be a good fit, even though at the time when I was applying I was like, I'll take anything, and then I was kind of like, but this just doesn't suit me. It has nothing to do with my goals, so I'm not gonna accept it. I declined it on Friday. It just seems like it would be a distraction, and it would take me longer to do what I need with my exams and everything, and for applying for the jobs I actually want. I feel like if I took that job, I would work at it and be a little worn down, and then have less time for podcasting and less time for my websites and other stuff. So I really don't know. I'm fine with it. But I just don't know What else I would potentially try and do. So I think I'm making the best decision for my own self and for what I've built so far. So I'm okay with the decision. Like, I'm not like broke or desperate, which is fine. But alright, guys, I'm gonna get off here and go eat lunch. And thanks for listening.